Welcome to another episode of the Crypto Spin Through podcast. First up, Bank of America wins a patent for a crypto exchange system. Basically, it's a three-part automated system that's converting cryptocurrency on an enterprise level. So, exchange rates are based on external feeds, and it also analyzes if a transaction is illicit through its risk calculation system. Greenspan likens Irrational Bitcoin to revolutionary war currency. So, former Treasury head, I think, Alan Greenspan, is saying Bitcoin isn't worth anything. Sure, people are using it for something, but similar to the continental currency, it's not backed by anything, even if it's being used for a means of exchange. This is an interesting argument because you can say this for currencies now, since they can just be printed on demand. And if you use governments as kind of the justification of what backs these currencies, then you could say the same about Bitcoin, but instead of governments, you say users, nodes, and miners. I think it's just another case of an older person with vested interests in the current way finance is conducted to really show a kind of have a negative experience or negative view toward Bitcoin, because it changes up a lot of things, especially if it was adopted by an entire country. Next up is the Bitcoin memory pool is filling up despite the rise in hash rate. So basically, it's backlogged insanely because more and more people are hopping on Bitcoin, and scaling is still taking a decent amount of time to happen. SegWit adoption, abysmally low, and most of the suspected reasons to why there's a massive backlog is there may be someone spamming low-fee transactions and clogging the memory pool purposefully, or it could be that and a combination of minor fluctuations of them changing currencies to whatever most profitable at the time. So that kills the hash rate and lowers transaction times. So expect lower transactions and high fees until the backlog lowers, and who knows when that's going to happen. Huobi, or Hubby, I don't know how to say it. It's Chinese group, and the SBI group, which is Japanese, are launching two Japanese exchanges together in early 2018. So Chinese money is fleeing to Japan. Why? Well, China is super restrictive, and Japan is the most permissive country with cryptocurrencies currently. This is especially true, well, the most permissive in the region. And this is especially true since South Koreans and Chinese really their options are becoming limited as those two governments are imposing more and more bans and restrictions. So people are really looking forward to Japan and Singapore as key places in Asia for any kind of crypto activity. Japan especially is expanding pretty quickly since, as I mentioned either last week or 2 weeks ago, that a Japanese exchange is coming to the US to offer its services. So, catfight. Ethereum users are clashing over CryptoKitties. As you know, CryptoKitties is the newest fad, and it's using quite a lot of resources for Ethereum. Most transactions I checked the Ethereum little gas guzzlers website, and on average, for the last 1,500 blocks, CryptoKitty related things take up 20%. To put that in perspective, Ether Delta really fluctuates between 5 and 10. So this is still a big thing. Some people think with time it will fade and relieve the network some. I honestly can't agree with them completely, because if you've seen video game and their like virtual items, people get invested in these things, and you only need a small core base to keep it going for a while and ensure the economy behind it continues chugging along, even if it's not really consistent prices all the time. So Ethereum is going to have to upgrade its scaling solution somehow, because CryptoKitties is going to remain a problem for a few months at the very minimum. The Bulgarian government is sitting on $3 billion of Bitcoin. So this is an old criminal crackdown of seized coins that at the time were only worth 500 million, and they've grown to 3 billion over the past 7 or so months. That's pretty insane gains. And not to mention, these coins are going to be out of circulation for a while, more than likely. And whenever they're probably going to be reintroduced, we'll have a small warning, because the bureaucracy tends to announce their next action. So until then, I think it was around 200,000 Bitcoins. They're just going to be out of circulation for a little bit. Next up is a big topic, Bitcoin futures, but this is the threat of Bitcoin futures. The gist of this is the effect of the futures trading is going to be significantly different than people expect. Most people think money's going to flood into Bitcoin and it's going to kind of burst in price. The author of this disagreed heavily. They suggest what's going to actually happen is the chance of volatility will increase, and the futures market is going to be largely independent of Bitcoin itself, just like it is with gold and other things. Article said futures markets tend to be significantly bigger since they're regulated and safer for bigger money to utilize. Also, the future market doesn't have to directly interact with Bitcoins, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. So who knows if the price increase that all these people expect will maintain as the futures market matures its own kind of separate entity of this kind of will play into another point soon. I'm just going to move on to the next article and talk about the way this kind of relates into the role of Bitcoin. So, but before that, Coinbase is number one on the App Store. This signals further mass adoption and helps people who are more mobile in tune to hop on the Bitcoin train. I think from this point on, education is going to be the most important thing, because newer technology, I'm sure something even more complex than smart contracts will make itself known, and people who are completely new probably don't understand forks. So education will be the best thing as more and more people decide to opt in to cryptocurrencies. And next, getting back to the future of Bitcoin and these Bitcoin futures, this article relates to it, I think, heavily. Vinny and Lingham has pointed out that Bitcoin investors only want profit rather than innovation. And this is one of the few times I mostly agree. with Vinny, sometimes he has off the wall predictions and kind of guesses with stuff. And that kind of like seems clouded by vested interests. But with this, mostly agree. Because a lot of the time you see people justify price as a measure of success while also touting that it's a currency, not realizing one thing is it's far from mass adoption, and the scaling issue right now is a major barrier. And some people, like the Bitcoin Cash camp, might say that's where we come in, that's where we're real currency, but I don't think so. Mining is the primary reason I say they also have not really a chance, because it's good for anti-fraud, yeah, but I feel like mining is a real barrier for it to be mass adopted. It's just, I think a new way of maintaining a digital currency will have to arise. That's not like mining cartels or proof of stake for any coin to be a currency and not be used as store value or a utility. Because I feel like for it to be a currency, it has to be better spread out, more so you spread out so the usage is consistent rather than mostly held or utilized on a singular platform. So Vinny's point was people see price and their profit and don't care about the technology behind it. And this also touches in with something I mentioned before about all these companies going with blockchain technology. There's a big controversial thing with people saying blockchain and not Bitcoin. Some people are like, they're inseparable. Like, you can't have Bitcoin without blockchain. You can't have blockchain without Bitcoin. And I disagree. Why? Because you can create something that's similar and just use that term for the layman, and people eat it up. I mean, people were a stock for a company that just put blockchain in his name shot up. So just because something says it's blockchain and it's probably very similar, like, doesn't mean it fits your definition of the whole Bitcoin blockchain debate. Companies are gonna not utilize Bitcoin as the primary thing, and that is a fact. Like, I firmly believe that, and you'll see more companies say we're using blockchain tech and not have any mention of Bitcoin at all. That is the direction we're going, and not to say that Bitcoin is going to die in price. I think the exact opposite is going to happen. I feel like the price will keep increasing because there's going to be less and less in circulation as people lose it by accident. And who knows how many coins are already lost. So the price is going to be influenced mainly by the scarcity of this coin in the very end. But I think the sun is setting for it to be considered a currency ever. And it will be a store value more than likely and a utility at most. Like, I don't see a currency coming out of Bitcoin anymore. Just, it's not really distributed not really distributed far across the board. It's not regularly used. It's perceived almost solely as a investment commodity. And to skip down out of order a bit, Wait, oh wait, go. All right, futures. I'm gonna go back to the futures thing, tying that into it being seen as an investment commodity. Futures are controlled by the FTC, which is related to commodities and not currencies. So that is also a major crutch of saying Bitcoin is no longer a currency. And I think that's about it for this little spiel. Give me your opinions here. Moving on to the next article. Craigslist is going with a cryptocurrency OK button to make crypto payments right there in Craigslist. So instead of cash or whatever, you can accept Bitcoin on Craigslist. I don't think I'd do that because Craigslist is pretty sketchy sometimes, but it's an option now. Next up is not disclosing one's Bitcoin may result in you becoming a criminal. I mentioned this earlier. Criminalization of hiding your Bitcoins. It's an insane bill. Why? Because it's just impossible to enforce. It seems like it'd be used to target specific people at most. It's literally impossible to do on a mass scale. And people will just flee to Monero if they're criminals. There's no reason to have a bill like this. It just boosts Monero's adoption rate among the dark web even faster than it already is. And Monero is even legitimizing itself with the whole Project Cruel and musicians thing, so it'll be hard to even label that as a criminal coin. I don't know, it's just another insane thing the US government is attempting to do. And it really just endangers higher profile people and will do nothing to criminals. Like, absolutely nothing. At most, it'd make more sense for it to just be a fine rather than any kind of jail time crime. Next up, more Monero. Bulletproofs concept will reduce Monero's transaction fee by up to 80%. So Monero's looking better and better. The anonymity is the main reason people prefer it. It's one of the only coins that are truly anonymous. Bitcoin's not truly anonymous. Zcash has recently had issues of kind of exposing that it can be, you can discover the identity behind some transactions. So Monero is really the last one that stands as truly anonymous and actually used. And this bulletproof concept could really tip Monero into becoming a top 5 coin, since it reduces transaction fees and the size of the transaction, I think. So makes Monero way more attractive to use as payment for something. And you can bet the dark web will probably further utilize Monero over Bitcoin when this is a thing. It's probably a boon greatest to like the drug trade, honestly. But as I said, Monero's legitimizing itself with Project Cruel and musicians. So if they tackle more legit uses from Monero, it was just going to be impossible to fully ban it, make it illegal, when other high-profile industries have entrenched themselves in using it too. And that'll be really the key for Monero to survive beyond the dark web. But I'm pretty optimistic with it. It has one of the better teams than really any crypto, and also has one of the better communities. So Monero has a lot of potential. This coin I've watched for a while and will continue to watch as it inevitably grows in market cap. And final thing is kind of a PSA in a way, if it's true. It's more like a warning PSA. So Russian cybercriminals have allegedly obtained passport data of all Bittrex users. So the back office process supposedly allowed this to happen. Very possibly your data, if you use Bittrex, it's there. It could be on a dark web market, it could be somewhere else, who knows. But more than likely, you should take precautions just in case. This is really concerning since Bittrex has been really crazily trying to pursue verification, even freezing accounts because they weren't verified. And this is either some crazy conspiracy behind it or the reason why they were targeted by these outside hackers in the first place, because they saw how aggressive the verification became. So I suggest being aware of what you need to do if your passport or driver's license has been leaked, stolen from Bittrex. So prepare for that. I personally don't like using passports for verification since I feel like that's a bigger hassle if something like this happens, because you have to deal with the State Department instead of a local DMV with the driver's license. So if you're a fellow American, I highly recommend just using driver's license for verification, because the process of doing that will be a lot easier than dealing with the State Department. Even if both you're at risk of identity theft, it's just so much easier to deal with. So much easier to deal with a driver's license than a passport. And I also feel like a passport's more you can do more stealing someone's passport information than with their driver's license information. But be aware, if you use Bittrex, immediately go to some kind of identity theft website, informational website that tell you what you should do, so you are aware of what you need to do moving forward, just in case this is true. Like I said, it might be a headache if you use your passport, but the driver's license thing isn't as bad. It's mainly check fraud. This is one of the worst things. But identity theft, it's still bad. So after you finish, right now, go do that if you use Bittrex. Look up the information and protect yourself just in case. This will probably have more personal impact than Tethers or Bitfinex right now. So do this. And that'll be it. A lot of rambling today about Bitcoin, but also the good PSA at the end, because I'm serious. Take care of your identity, because this could be serious. So things are kind of busy right now, but expect the episodes at a normal time, and see ya Thursday. Like, share, rate it 5 stars, do all that jazz, and I'll see you on the next episode on this Thursday.